In this video, we're going to take a look at a brown ink by Akkerman, their number 22. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the brown ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you could find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen, great shading in the stub, better shading in the extra fine, decent shading in the medium. The extra fine is definitely the darkest tone that we're seeing on the page. 9 seconds to dry, while the medium took 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine doesn't really show the color variation that we're getting in the writing, while the medium shows tons, and we are getting it. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Pelican M1000 with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding. No real ghosting. I say no real ghosting because I guess you could say there's some very minor ghosting, but nothing to be any problems. We have no feather spread. We do get quite a bit of haloing going on in the stub, especially in its darker areas that come with the shading. We get that same haloing with the extra fine that comes with its shading. We don't get the halo with the medium. No sheen. Great shading all the way through this. Again, the halo comes with the shade for the stub. It comes with the darker tones of the extra fine, which is the same tone as the stub. The medium, much lighter than everything else. Still great shading. The extra fine took 13 seconds to dry, while the medium took 17. Scrubby for both, show good color variation, and the extra fine shows the halo. We get that in the writing, and the smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And it looks like a much lighter brown than we get in the writing. We see the very beginnings of a line that's forming at the bottom. It does push up very lightly, and then we get this yellow across the top. Now, the one on the right that's allowed to dry for 10 minutes, that brown line that was forming at the bottom is much darker, much more there. The rest of the brown that pushes up very light in tone is very even in its distribution. And again, that yellow, very bright at the top. It does suggest that there might be a little bit of resistance for this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen, great shading all the way through. All three, all of them in the same tone, looks amazing here. The extra fine took 9 seconds to dry, while the medium took 12. The scrubby for both shows some color variation. It shows better in the medium, but it's amazing in the writing. The smear test, you might be able to recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I feel very safe using this in a note-taking situation. It barely seemed to react to it at all. Now, water is lifting most of the darker tones, leaving the lighter tones. Pen Flush is acting a little bit faster than water did, but still not completely getting rid of it. The 1/3 bleach solution, on the other hand, is completely obliterating it. But what did it take to get this out of my pen? Water. Just water. The next writing sample is done on Moji paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen. We get very nice shading in the stub, in the extra fine. It is there in the medium, not nearly as standout as it is in the extra fine or the stub. The extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while the medium took 8. The scrubby for both does show some color variation, and it is in the writing, though better in the extra fine. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity is 2.5. with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Akkerman's number 22 has a viscosity of 1.77, so it's a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity test and all of that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. The next writing sample is done on moleskin paper. Known to be horrible with fountain pens, it naturally does have quite a bit of bleed spots. Now, none of these bleed spots touch the page underneath. It may mean you can't use the back of the page. That's really going to be a user choice thing. We do get feathering in the medium and in the extra fine. We don't get any spread in either, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is slightly lighter than the medium. It took 2 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows that there could be color variation, though none comes through. And the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal is 13 to 21 seconds. Akkerman's number 22 has an average dry time of 12 seconds, so it dries a little bit faster than normal. The last writing sample is done on 28-pound copy paper. We do get some bleed spots that are coming very heavy into the page, but they're not coming through the page, corrupting the page underneath. I don't even see these as stopping you from using the back of the page. Now, we do get a little bit of feathering that is occurring in both the medium and, well, only where I made the mistake on the extra fine. Other than that, it's really not. Wow, I had a horrible writing day. No spread, no halo, no sheen. I guess we could call that shading where I went over that K a couple of times. I won't. They're about the same tone. I really don't care for this color on this paper. The extra fine took 1 second to dry. The scrubby says there should be color variation, and there's not, except where I went over the K twice. In the smear test, you can't smear it, so you don't have to worry about it. Instead of finding inks that look like Akkerman's number 22, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice turquoise ink by Noodler's Navajo Turquoise. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Akkerman's number 22? This is a really nice golden brown that brings a lot of personality to your writing. I like that the lighter tone is still very readable on the page, but definitely prefer its darker tones. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? A wet broad will put down a great dark tone and still bring tons of shading. I like that, or I actually prefer it in a wet fine, and my tastes have gone strange fine and broad, not mediums so much. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Noodler's Blue Steel.